welcome everyone at the very first short film conference online. My name is Aneta Ozorek and I'm an artistic director of Kaboom Animation Festival. And let me introduce the organizer of this session. Short Film Conference is a platform created to promote and support short film circuit, and it's built on the support, knowledge, and exchange between more than 90 festivals, more than 90 festivals, distributors, sales agents, agencies from Europe and all around the world. And the reasons we organize this session are obvious. It's about current ongoing changes within the industry happening because of the coronavirus. And yeah, we just decided that we don't want to be alone in this, that there are already festivals who went through these changes, and we can learn and we can exchange the knowledge among us. Let me start with introducing our panelists. So the festivals which decided to to share their experience with us. Marie-Elaine Riou, Festival Regard, Gaschütz, Filmfest Dresden, and Sven Schwarz, Kurzfilm Festival Hamburg. And let me also go through very fast through the agenda. We're gonna start with 3 10-minute presentations of the festivals. And then at the end, we're gonna make a Q&A part. So that's why I really would like you to ask all of you to put the questions into the small Q&A box, which you have at the bottom of your screens. And the whole session will take around 1 hour and 15 minutes. And probably you are also interested if this session will be recorded. Yes, it will, and you can share it with your colleagues and crews, and it will be shared on the Talking Shorts platform. We're gonna also post the information about it on our channels, on our Facebook channels. All right, so let's maybe start with the first panelist. Marie-Elaine, are you ready?
Yes.
If yes, then digital floor is yours.
Yeah, I will start it as we started this little situation. So, well, as you said, my name is Marie-Elaine and I'm the festival director of Regard, which is in Saguenay in Canada. Regard was supposed to be from 11 to 15 of March. It was the 24th edition of the festival. And we actually had a festival because it started on Wednesday, 11 of March. And we finally ended it on the day after noon. So I will first maybe share some picture because we have picture of this edition, just to put some images on this little story. And then after I will continue my presentation. I guess main of the people here knows about the festival, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about the festival, but more about canceling and the decision we've made. So first of all, I wanted to start with a blue sky because everything was looking really great under this edition. We actually had to made some decision or get prepared about the COVID situation because we knew it was happening and we had to do some prevention, but we didn't know what else to do because nobody told us it would have been canceled right after. So, well, I will go really fast on those pictures, but it's just like the first day of the festival with Ariane from the short film market that some people knows. The jokes I was making about COVID the day before was making laugh a lot of people. And then some touristic activities was happening. So when we knew the story, well, we knew it was canceled. There was some people doing helicopter tour at Regard. And they didn't know. Some people get tattooed also about this edition. So this guy has this tattoo forever, and it was not an edition that we finished. And then there was this, we started the day after with the breakfast, and then we had to empty the rooms, and then we did some COVID picture. So this is the story about this year edition. So yeah, well, I have the feeling about this year that we have to make the decision really quick, having this decision to do during the festival. So first of all, the question we had was, should we cancel? Should we say when we're canceling that we will report, or we will do something online? So actually, I really didn't know, and I had to make this decision really quick because the press conference was like half an hour after the press conference of the Prime Minister. So obviously we were not able to say something else than canceling at this moment, because that was so quick that there was no other decision that we could make in this really immediately, let's say. So but when I say, like, in the media I wanted to cancel, of course I was already thinking and sending messages to people, the partners that have platform online and stuff like that, because it was like looking the better way to do something quickly. But we first said that we were canceling, and it was because of course we wanted to give back the money to the audience. So it became like the main priority about what we were doing after. It was to make that all the people involved in the festival would want to come back the year after. So like the volunteers, the people working with us, the guests, the audience, of course. So we wanted each action I think we've made in this decision and the hours after canceling was about making that people wouldn't say, okay, no, the next year I don't go because of this or because of that or because of what they've made the year before. So we decided to give back the money to all the people for their passport or tickets and stuff like that. After that, we had to contact also all the sponsors, because we were afraid some sponsors will go away, because of course they also have enterprise that were not in such a good situation. But in this day it was not really clear, but it became clear like some days before after. So it has been like the main priority. And then the filmmakers, because what happened at Regard is that we had guests that were there. There were more than 50% of the guests arrived. So all the teams separate like by priority. Each people they will tell before, like, well right after the press conference, because of course we didn't know before the press conference of the Prime Minister. So we called everybody, and we tried not everybody come to Saguenay. I mean, because there's a lot of guests from Montreal, but there was guests that already arrived. So it happened there was some activities of not of the festival, but that the guests decided to organize. But we tried to not have everybody here because it would have cost more for a festival that were not happening. So it was a lot of financial also decision, let's say. But then after communicating, after stopping everything, we've did almost a festival, like, because there was people here and activities. So not activities, but like there was something happening. So this is, I think, the good side of having to cancel a festival during a festival, is that something looking like a festival was happening, but without films and screenings. But at the same time, this is more the financial side that is really hard to have an idea. 1 month after, I still don't know exactly what will happen with all that situation. Let's say we try to save the most we can, but it was really hard. And also I think the bad side is like there's a lot of things of this year that we cannot save for the next year. Even if we try to save a lot, like all the marketing is already it's already made, it's already communicated, the programming also. So we still try to figure out what we will do. And the decision we finally made about like all the online stuff is that we didn't want to precipitate us on putting everything online. And of course, we didn't know how long it would have been. So we didn't want to like to ask to filmmakers to put their films that were premiere in Regard online, just to have our programming online. We wanted to wait a little bit to see this situation happening. So we had already a partnership with the Télé-Québec here that happened, and other platforms too. So there was film already planned to be online after this edition. So this is the chance we had. But on the other hand, we decided to put also the winners because the jury had deliberated, and that was really for us relieving that at least there was awards, and there was awards because the jury did it, and because also it was not long time after the festival, so at least we could do that, as many festivals have made also. So this was important for us, but maybe we will put online some films, but not all the programming, and it won't be in the immediately now, because some festivals do it during their dates of the festival. Obviously we couldn't do that. So now we feel maybe we will do it like in some months, but it's not really like an emergency for us at this moment because of the festival being passed. So this is more or less where we are right now, and what would be my presentation for starting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Marie-Elaine. Let me just remind you, all of you, that you can ask the question in the Q&A part, and we're gonna ask them at the end of the session. You can ask about the things which Marie-Elaine just shared, or also some other questions maybe about the subjects she didn't mention, and it's of course about all the other panelists as well. Okay, so thank you, Marie-Elaine. And let's then move on to the second panelist, Anne Gaschütz, if you can join us and share your story about postponing of a festival.
Yes, let me just try to share my screen. So many new things you learn today.
Yes, it's a time of learning for all of us, I think.
Yes. So our story is very different from Regard. So before I start about our story, I just want to say that I think our festival, or we as a festival, we're in a very lucky position financially, and also how this turned out so far. So well, for us it was really because our festival was planned for should have started next week actually, so the end of April. So when all this Corona madness started back, I think at the end of Berlinale, it became quite apparent in Italy. So we were still very hopeful that and optimistic that the festival would happen, because yeah, end of April was still a long way to go. But then I don't know, for us it was really, or for me personally, the worst time was actually the beginning to the middle of March, when you didn't know what was going to happen, and it felt like this I don't know, this thing, like the circle coming closer and closer, because it started off with big festivals canceling, and then smaller and smaller festivals following suit, which was yeah, you just kept watch all the time. So I don't know, for many people probably, like in March it looked a bit like this, like all these news coming in. So it was like Corona closing in on us, and but then also it was also marked with hope, because Tampere obviously did happen at the beginning of March, and we were also kind of thinking, okay, we're a smaller short film festival event, so we don't have 100,000 visitors or guests like at the beginning of March, for example. The book fair got cancelled in Saxony, which hosts like, I don't know, 150,000 people, which is not us, so we're still hopeful. However, things didn't turn out as planned, and well, I just put some bullet points here. So for us, the 10th of March was basically a very doomed day, not just for us. It was also the day when Short Waves in Poland cancelled, which was, I think, the first short film festival that actually had to cancel. So the realization slowly kicked in. And also in Saxony, or maybe it's important to know that Germany is a federal state, or federal country. So we have 16 states. So the states have different power, or governments and legislative. So if things that happen in Saxony might not have happened at the same time or in the same way as, for example, in Hamburg, but I'm sure Sven can talk about that for Hamburg later. So on the 10th of March in Saxony, we got this decree by our minister president on mass events that would consist of more than 1,000 people. And on the 12th of March, our mayor of Dresden also handed out the same decree, which also meant that all events that are smaller than 1,000 people would have to do this risk assessment of how risky it is to hold these events. And so this also meant that cinemas and theaters would close until the 19th of April, which I think just got prolonged today. So this was basically for us the moment when we realized the festival would probably not be going on as planned. For us, the problem was that our festival was supposed to start on the 21st of April. So all the rules did not apply to us. So we couldn't get a proper no from the administrative offices. So we had to actually go through our options, and we had basically the three options: to go digital, to cancel, or to postpone the festival. And we very briefly thought about going digital, but for us it wasn't an option. Basically because for us the festival, we're an audience festival, so it's for our local audience. We have a very strong audience here. We wanted to keep the festival atmosphere. We wanted to give the filmmakers, or that's our wish, to give the filmmakers the opportunity to screen their films in a bigger cinema, to connect with the audience on a personal level. And what's also important to us, to support our local cinemas, because they just had closed and they actually do make money from us as well, or we do pay them rent. So going digital or canceling would also mean to not support these cinemas that actually also need some sort of support. So the options were basically between canceling or postponing the festival. And before we made the decision, we kind of had to evaluate both events, which in our hearts we knew we wanted to postpone, but you have to also lay out the facts first. So we checked our finances. We had to check with the different funding institutions, because we are very lucky to get funding on many levels. We're media funded, we get funding from the German state, we get institutional funding on the local state, which is quite a lot. So we also had to check if both options, what happens with the funding, what do these funds require, and also would it be possible to maybe also get extra funding in case we postpone, and because both actions, postponing and canceling, will incur more costs. Also, what was important to us to check any possible dates to move to, because we all know that autumn is very full with festival dates already. We had to consult our board, because like most festivals, we have a board, so they had to agree on it as well. And what we also did was to stay in touch with other festival people who maybe had already postponed or cancelled, and also to see where they would set their dates. So before we actually made the decision or put it together, maybe it's also important to just know where we were at that point on the 10th of March, back in the day. So our program was fully ready. The core members of the temp staff were already working, like the print coordinator, the guest office was here, the catalog editor. The films were already being tested. We did subtitling, the German subtitles for the international competition films. We have this program on where we make films available for people with a disability. That's a very long process. So this was already going on. Our booklet was printed, our posters were printed, we had our bags. The catalog was in the final stages. Travels were booked for juries, hotels were booked, and so we already put some money into the whole process, even though it was still 6 weeks to go to the festival. So then we actually we kind of looked at the potential costs of canceling or postponing. The thing is, we were pretty sure that if the health authorities would have told us that we cannot do the festival, we would have been totally fine in terms of institutional funding. The problem was that we wouldn't get that cancellation thing from the health authorities because the decree from the minister was only until the 19th of April. So we were kind of lost there. And also cancellation would mean that we wouldn't get project funding or only partially get project funding. We would only get to keep parts of already spent money. We would have to pay for hotel cancellation. We might have had to pay back submission fees. That's something that might be, I don't know, we actually discussed this, but it's, you know, if we would have had to cancel, I don't know, it might have been the case to actually have to pay back submission fees. And already some people had started working for the festival. On the other hand, if the event doesn't happen, we would have saved a lot of costs for the event, like renting cinemas or the technical equipment and all the people working in the festival week. But altogether, canceling would have cost us around 80 to 100,000 euros. Postponing the festival would have meant that the funding institutions were all fine with it. We assume we will get fewer ticket sales. If the festival does happen the way we intend it to happen, I guess we will have fewer ticket sales. The hotels are very, very cooperative. We could basically book the same package for September. We are pretty certain that we will have less income from advertisements, from trailers, from sponsoring, because obviously we're headed for a financial crisis. And the temporary staff, like the guest office, or the person who does the guest office, we will have to pay them more money because obviously they will work again for us. And of course, we will have to pay money for the event as such. But still, even with these costs, the loss of postponing the festival would be between 20 and 30,000 euros for our festival. So we made the decision to postpone the festival. It was basically also just the financial, not just, but also financial point. So what we did when we made this decision was just an internal decision for now, because we couldn't go public straight away, because again, although we get institutional funding, we cannot just decide on our own. We needed the yes from the authorities. So what we did then is, or what's important then, to contact again the funders, to contact the partners, the core team members. Everybody is important to check if a postponement would be possible at all. So, because if nobody's there during your desired date, then you don't need to postpone the festival. But we were very lucky. Most people and locations were available, so we've actually postponed it to the second week of September, which is not the ideal week for us. We would have liked to have done it a week earlier, but the second week is also fine. After that, we still tried to get an official statement from the funding institutions, which we got a week later, I think, after making the decision. And then we could finally inform everybody. So before we actually went public, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but before we went public, we got in touch with everybody, like everybody involved, with the filmmakers, with our partners, with all the other funding bodies, again, the curators, the festival team, everybody that would have been here in April. And then we actually, at some point, I think on the 18th or 19th of March, we went public and made a press release that we would postpone the festival, which was a relief, I think, and because we finally knew now we can work on a new edition. We can finally get our stuff together and start making the changes. So we had to adjust the financial plan, of course, because we need to save these 30,000 euros, which means, for example, not printing the catalog, cutting out locations, having fewer screenings. we will probably have fewer guests. I mean, it's still very open. I mean, because we don't know what's going to be in September, so it's also a little bit of a limbo still. Yeah, which and what we're also doing now is we didn't just stop everything. But we're also finishing what was already started, and we can finish now. So we're gonna finish the whole DCP testing until 20th of April. The catalog is in the final stages of the corrections and so we will be ready in September, because of course the new challenge is to prepare 2 festivals at the same time, more or less from summer, because when our new festival dates happen, then it's also the time for the new call for entry. We need to do, like, you know, you have to kind of readjust your schedule a little bit, because many funding deadlines will fall into September. So we have to do this now a lot earlier. During the summer, we have to do reportings, or actually we cannot do any reporting on this year's festival edition because there hasn't been one yet. So this is still something we need to figure out. Yeah, but I think we'll be fine. I think it's doable. It's nothing too. I think it's doable. We have to be optimistic. What's interesting, or what's challenging a little bit, is the way of communication, because of course we're also not all together in the office. So we are also discovering new means of communicating within the team. And it's still an uncertainty in terms of timeline, because nobody knows what is going to happen. So we don't know when we will all be back in the office. We don't know if the festival can happen as planned in September, but we will have to see. The game starts new. But I think it's also very, I think you always have to look at the upsides. So what's really, really nice is that we learn a lot of new skills, actually. All the team is now using Slack. We communicate more online, which wasn't there before. So I think it's also for us a new way of finding structures to communicate and keep updated. We have everything in Google Drive, like probably other people as well. We can now start with the preparations for 2021, so we have less stress from the April edition. We now also have more time to rethink alternatives for September in case the festival still cannot happen as planned. So I mean, it's still, I think, 4 months to go, so it's more time to rethink. I have a feeling, but it might be subjective, but I think we are more active on social media as a festival. I think there's more going on, I think. Which I think is good for us to engage more people. It's also, I think it's going to be very, very interesting to attend all the festivals that actually go online, because I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there and what we can learn from it and maybe integrate in future festival programming. And for me personally, the best thing is that I have more time for the media application, because the deadline would have been next week as well. So I'm happy there's more time for that. Yeah. And apart from that, we look forward to a festival edition in September, and hopefully something will happen then. So that's it.
Right. Thank you so much, Anne. It's good that you mentioned the online possibility. We decided to make 2 sessions, actually, because the going online is such a big subject that there will be another session next week devoted only to that matter. And today we only discuss actually and present the showcases of the festivals which we didn't chose that way. Okay, thank you so much, Anne. And we can move on to the last presentation. Sven, if you can join us and say how does it look in Hamburg.
Hey everybody, good to see you all here virtually and to have people here. It's really nice. So yes, in Hamburg, I have a few bullet points on my presentation. And in Hamburg, we were in a bit of a luckier situation that we had quite a lot of time, because the initial date was planned for early June. Let me just share that with you just for a moment, please. There you just see the whole thing. So yes, the original dates, May 31st to June 8th. This is combined with our children's section, the unforeseen Children's Festival. It's basically two festivals happening at the same time, but organized by the same body, but just in terms of marketing and publications, two different things. So we would have been played in 8 cinemas, 2 off locations, a huge festival center. We would have video art installations, open air cinemas, 370 films, 100 seats. You can read all that. So we had planned most parts of it. The films were almost selected for the competitions. So the festival was planned in a nutshell, like the graphic design was in the last steps to be finished. And so in early March as well, we came across that situation that we all know, and we had to decide what is going to happen. As compared to other events, also non-film events that happen here in Hamburg, we were in the lucky position that we didn't have to wait for an official decree that would forbid us to take place, because most other events that take place that have a problem with that, and most of them, for example, music festivals, they need this official decree so that they are able to cancel any contracts they have without having to pay a fine for canceling the contracts. And since we didn't really have those contracts set up yet, we didn't have to cancel them, which was quite okay and nice for us. But of course, the cinemas were booked. Staff was already set to start, or some already had started, or staff was supposed to start within the next 1 or 2 or 3 weeks. So quite a lot of things were already planned. And of course, on the one hand, we started to talk with our funding body, which is the city of Hamburg, to figure out what they think about the whole thing. And also there, we were in this really, really nice and lucky position that they basically gave us complete freedom to decide whatever we wanted, because they said, we can't forbid you to do the festival in late May, early June, because there is no decree out for that. But you can do whatever you want, and you will receive your funding no matter what. Because in Hamburg, also another lucky position, the cultural scene gets quite a lot of support from the city itself. Of course, there are some situations that are not that good, but in most cases, the support and funding is so good that we actually got the green light from the city of Hamburg that we could actually honor every obligation that we have financially with staff members, or for example, with the cinemas, that if it's possible for us to pay that money to them, then we actually should do that, no matter if we would use their services or not. So for example, we have our cinemas that are actually booked, that we play the festival in the cinemas there. And of course, they're all closed and can't do anything, don't. And we already had a contract with them, either being written or just by email, all that. And the city said, yeah, of course, give them the money that was planned to be spent to the cinemas, pay that no matter if you play in the cinemas or not. And just simply said, because if we wouldn't do that, then 2 days later, the cinemas would be at the next door, knocking on at the culture ministry to get support from them as well. So it seems as if the city tried to put the bureaucracy as low as possible in terms of, if there are any systems that are working, just leave them running, so we can have money that is supported and supplied to the people that work with us. For example, staff members that were supposed to work from late March or early April on, and which basically don't have that much to do till June, they will get paid anyways. And now we're trying to figure out let's say the annoying parts of our works that we can distribute among more people to be done. So of course, then we had to decide what to do. The options, as Anna already said, go digital, postpone or cancel. We didn't want to go digital because, in our opinion, our festival's main thing is that we have this meeting place for people, that we want to have people at the same spot talking about their films, and also all these things that happen around the festival, not only the films that are in the cinemas, which is of course the core of the festival, but in terms of video installations, panels, parties, you name it, which is very important for us to happen. And also we figured out, if we would have now 2 months of everything happening online, and then in June the weather starts to become good, we don't really see that many people just watching the 30th festival online in early June, especially as compared to festivals like Oberhausen not being a premiere festival. So many films that in our competitions have been screened beforehand, the industry knows those films. So there's not that much of a sense for us to have those films online, especially if the outcome in terms of the audience cannot really be calculated. So then we figured out, so what is the more important thing of the festival? We wanted to have films in the cinema, so we came up with the new plan. One part of the plan was that we take our children's festival, which is basically audience, let's say 90% audience, because we work together with lots of schools and all that, so we have to move that festival after the school vacations, which is early September. We know it's a bit of a risk because nobody knows, as Anna said, as is the case in Dresden, what is happening in September. But we can't put it that much later because of how we work together with schools. And then we said, let's try to put it in September. We almost put it as a whole thing there. The only thing that we skipped are international guests and some of the workshops, because we said, let's get the kids into the cinema again, do this in September. And basically, the program will stay the same as it was planned. Now for let's call the Grown-Ups Festival. We said, so the important thing for us is that we support the filmmakers. And we thought one of the biggest risks of how the situation is right now is that there is like a whole year of films that might be lost if people just cancel, if other festivals just get canceled, because we know that there's the, let's call it the class of 2020, films that needs to be screened, films that need to be online, films that need to be nominated for European Film Awards, for example. Also in German, there's a system that if you are screened at specific festivals, you will get points towards the next funding by the Federal Funding Board of Germany for filmmaking. So it is important that those films are screened or are selected in some way. And then our artistic director, Maike, came up with the, it's a bit of an older idea, the Hamburg Film In, which is something that started in 1968. They did that for the first time, that a bunch of film nerds met for a whole weekend in the cinema and basically watched films 72 hours in a row. Mm-hmm. They did something close to that a few years ago at the B-Movie Cinema here in Hamburg as well. And so we said, why won't we do that as well? Of course, we didn't want to go for the 24-hour in a row thing because people need to have some sleep. We are all not getting younger. And also, if you want to watch competition films, those should be watched with some attention as well and not with people falling asleep. So we will actually screen all the films that have been selected into our competitions. They will be screened during one weekend from November 6th to 8th in one cinema, starting on the Friday late afternoon, and there will be a break with a party on Friday night, and then Saturday morning starting at 10. And then I think it's like 14 hours in a row of films, and you can buy a ticket for like the whole thing or just for single screenings. And it's like more of an event character as well, that people will gather at the cinema, there will be breakfast there will be lunch and drinks and all that in between. And then on Sunday night, everybody stays. So we just actually went through this really exciting thing together, watching films, which blows people together. Of course, we know we won't attract that many people with that. The cinema fits, I think it's around 320 in there. And it might be quite a lot of the same people at most of the screenings as well. So of course, the number of 16,000 spectators won't be reached, but that's just how it is. And we think it's a nice idea to get the films into the cinemas like that. And then also with our special programs, because of course, some of them were actually already planned out quite thoroughly, also together with cooperation partners here in Hamburg. So we decided that I think just one of the special programs will move entirely to 2021, because it's one where you don't really need to attach it to a certain year. It can be screened this year or next year, that doesn't matter. So we are in the luxurious position to have a 5-program special program, which can be just taken from 2020 to 2021 and just screened there. So that means a bit of less work for us next year. And then we have screenings together with cooperation partners here in Hamburg that will take place scattered across the second half of the year. Not within those 3 days in November, but we will screen them, for example, like in October or later in December, that we work together with them and do like single screening events at sometimes at those partners' premises like museums or other arts spaces and all that. So the challenge is not as elaborate as Anna had them on her presentation, but I mean, it's basically the same problem we all face. Money, of course. How much does it cost to not have a festival, especially if we want to follow our also social obligation to pay those people that were supposed to be paid, that actually planned with the money that they get. So in the end, it's like 1/3 of the budget So it's like 140,000 euros less if we don't do the big festival, just move it to those 3 days. Same with the team. We have a lot of people that were supposed to work right now. So we will do all like the graphics design, the brochures and all that. That'll be done right now for the event in November. So we have everything prepared, and then just towards, let's say, October, when everything goes into print, we might add like the last logos of some funders and supporting institutions. With the films as well, as we said, we want to screen those films right now. We can already do all the getting the copies to Hamburg, getting the subtitles ready if they need any and all that, and also print products and PR. We definitely wanted to have some sort of catalog, so there will be a program brochure for the thing in November, but also a festival catalog, which some filmmakers need for funding applications and all that. So, but that will be only in PDF form, digital only. So we think it's a good idea just to get everything a bit smaller, move it there, and then hopefully things will take place in November, especially for the Children's Festival in September. We never know if that'll be possible to take place, but we're looking forward to have something which is exciting. But that weekend in November, also in terms of calendar, the festival calendar in Hamburg is very, very full with other festivals. We have a feature film festival, queer film festival happening and all that. But so finding that's one specific weekend where we actually can do that was not that easy. So we are unfortunately right now on the same dates as the Festival Winter Tour. But since what we do is aimed for the biggest extent at audience and not at industry, that's something that we actually would have to live with, even though it's not the ideal form, because everything will be just packed into the last half of the year. So we know that might be a problem. So yeah, that's how we are planning things. And in the end, money-wise, we actually left the whole thing with a very light blue eye, how they would say in Germany, which means we don't lose any money on the whole thing. We are able to pay everybody that was supposed to work for 2 or 3 months period. Unfortunately, we won't be able to pay people that were supposed to work for 2 or 3 days during the festival itself. But those are jobs where people don't have to rely on the money to support themselves for the whole money they have to live on. But those people actually need to get that money from us. They will actually get it, which is something which we feel very good that we are able to do that. And it actually makes you feel a bit better than having to call people and say, sorry, we are canceled, or we have moved and we won't be able to give you any money for your job. Mm-hmm. So that's how it is.
Yeah, thank you, Sven. Yeah, definitely. It seems like also going to be extremely busy. I already before I'm going to ask the first questions from our Q&A site. I already have a question to Anna and Sven. Do you think that because of this, how the calendar in autumn going to look like, that you are going to concentrate, and you know that already, more on the national audience or the city audience than international guests and international visitors? Anna, if you maybe can start.
Yeah, I think we have to concentrate more on the national side, because I think naturally it will be that people will not travel so much in September anyway, because I think the restrictions in every country will be different. I mean, if we look at France, they already canceled everything until the mid of July, and in Germany they're already talking about reopenings and stuff. So I think we have to really concentrate on Germany and what will be the rules over here. And to, like I said before, we have a very strong local audience. So I hope they will be able to come to the cinema. Nevertheless, of course, we will see that we also get international guests, but I'm pretty sure there won't be that many. But we would, of course, like to have the events as planned that we had, or some of them. So, but it's still in the stages of figuring it out and waiting. What will be the rules or decrees or whatever in the next few weeks. I think we can't really say right now.
Of course. And Sven, what do you think?
Yeah, for us, the main objective will be the audience from the city of Hamburg, for, of course, towards the reason that Anna just said as well. And also, since we had to cut down on the whole budget, quite some money down, the money that we have to spend on travel and hotel, that was cut like one of the first things, because we know we won't spend that in June, so we're not able to spend it in September. And also, since we didn't want to spend any money right now that we didn't know if we could actually use what we paid for in November, that's why we said we just cut that. We decided that in terms of international audience, we would only be able to host, for example, filmmakers, where we can be sure that we can get the money refunded by, for example, like cultural institutions, like as in support from whatever, like the British Council or Canada Council, where we know that the travel and accommodation costs are supported by those institutions. For the German filmmakers, that's a bit easier because traveling in Germany, if it is allowed then, is way cheaper if we book it or if we look at it now. And since most filmmakers actually hosted in private homestays here in Hamburg, we're trying to figure out if people are actually willing to host people as well in November. So we just send out, or are planning to send out a mail to all our hosts and ask them if they are able to host people as well in November, which I'm not too sure if people actually are, after having spent so much time in their places, they want to have like guests, but we never know. And I hope that people will just display the hospitality, which I think will be working quite well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And the question from Q&A from Patrick from Interfilm to Anne and maybe also to Sven. Are there already thoughts about what you will do if mass events are still not allowed in September? Is the plan B for going digital in the end? And would you rather cancel?
That is a very good question. It's something I cannot really answer right now, but I think because we have more time and also because festivals like Vienna or Krakow or Oberhausen are going online, we can actually check them out and see what they're doing. Or like, I think Go Short is also starting today, I think. So we can see how this works and maybe already get some feedback from them and see if it actually would make sense for us and our audience, or if not, because for us also it's very important to show the films. Like I think what Sven said earlier is really, really important, that you have I think you call it like the class of 2020. So these are the films that might get lost, you know, and I think it's also important to show them. But I mean, I have also thought about this already, and I mean, in the best case, there will be, or not in best case, but I think it's very likely, I think, that there will be a lot of restrictions still for traveling internationally, but I think it might be possible already in September to have events locally up to a certain size. So we at least can maybe screen films to our local audience. And also with certain projects like the programs that we make accessible for disabled people, it's a lot of money involved, it's a lot of project funding, so we have to show these programs somehow, but I think you can be very, how do you say, flexible with that as well, and maybe have several screenings throughout the year, or maybe postpone it to the next year as well, some screenings. We will have to see. It's gonna be an interesting summer with lots of options.
Yes. Sven?
Actually, if in November or September the Kids Festival, I think especially for the Children's Festival, that one will be just cancelled, unfortunately, in November. Yes, we won't move it any further. It's just that one thing that we will make sure is that there will be like a catalog publication, as in, so those are the films that are selected for the festival. So for example, we will actually publish the list of selected films either tomorrow or today already on our website. So those are the films that are selected for Hamburg for this year. Because on the one hand, as I said, like there are some funding issues with the whole thing, that filmmakers need to have those selections from specific festivals as well. And also there are other festivals that are looking at who was selected where, just to get input from those festivals. So the least thing that will stay from the 2020 festival will be an online publication of the films that have been selected for that year. So hopefully there will be more than just that, but yeah, that's like the minimum plan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Can I just add something for us, which we experienced the first round, is that for us it's very difficult to just cancel. Like, we are not in this lucky position as maybe Hamburg, because we really need the official statement, or the official statement from the health authorities that we have to cancel, and this you will get very shortly before the event. So if you had wanted to cancel the April event, I sent them everything and I still haven't received any feedback, and the festival would have started next week. So this is, for us, canceling is a lot more bureaucratic than actually postponing, I think, or that's the experience I had in the first time.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Anna. Another question from Joanna from Sedi Sicorto International Film Festival. What kind of the support did you receive from the institution financiers? Marie-Elaine, if we can start with you. If there's any additional financing which you already get or...
No, for the moment, we didn't get any additional financing. And of course, this is one of the reasons we couldn't say any report because like I'm feeling like we should do something in the fall, of course, but this is mainly because we won't have that much money to do so. So we want to keep the energy for the next edition. And then somehow, as I said, there was some of an edition this year. But yeah, we work on making I'm talking a lot with the government, like the Quebec government, because this is the main one that hasn't say anything about compensation for now for cultural. So what they've made, it's like they are advancing the money of the next edition. So they're like they're pressing money, like but they're not giving additional help. It's more about liquidity to be able to pay for the hotels, for example, for all the expenses we add that we don't have the money from the tickets to pay everything. And of course we've paid everybody, and like the thing is that everybody from the festival, like from the festival team, almost have finished their contract, so we haven't had to make the decision of keeping people or not, hopefully. But then yeah, to pay all the expenses we have in the next month, we have help like with money but it's not additional help for the moment. I hope so.
Okay, thank you so much. Sven?
As I said earlier, so since our main funder is the city of Hamburg, and they were very, very easy to handle, because I said, okay, the thing is working, here's your money, just do whatever you want with it, basically. So the funding is completely secure for this year, which is really, really good to know. Of course, Creative Europe is a very problematic part of the whole thing, because we are still within the application process to know if we get the money for our festival. I mean, we are always in that weird situation that I basically know 4 weeks before my festival starts if I get Creative Europe funding or not. So I need to be a very optimistic person, think that I get that money anyways. But by now we won't really know, and actually I don't think that we will receive that money for this year. They started to do some research and questionnaire to festivals how their situation is. But for example, Lars Henrik Gass from Oberhausen, he's sort of like become the spokesperson of the German Film Festivals Organization Association. And he was already in contact with Creative Europe, and they said that festivals that get cancelled during the application process, they won't get any funding. And it might be, I think the best case scenario is that our festival will just be lowered within the money that we get from Creative Europe, which would mean like 25,000 euros less. But then again, we are in the lucky position that even if we don't get the money, our budget has been calculated like that we have basically a red zero under the line. So we are sort of fine. And yeah, but I know that there are many, many other festivals that are not in such a luxurious position that we are.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Anne, how does it look in Dresden?
Yeah, again, we are also in a very luxurious position, I think, because we do receive a lot of institutional funding. So we get it from the city of Dresden, but we get the most of our funding from the state of Saxony, from the Ministry of Culture. And the city was actually quicker in responding, or saying it's going to be okay. You can, whatever you have to do, you have to do. It was a bit more not problematic, but challenging is maybe the better word, with the state of Saxony, because it's more bureaucratic and more, they have to talk to the Ministry of Finances and everything. It's, we don't, I think in Germany we don't just cut our administrative ways, I don't know. But generally speaking, they're very, very supportive. So for this year, we also, I think, even if we have to cancel or whatever in September, if this happens, it will be because we will be told to do so. So the institutional funding will most likely stay in place this year. So, and this institutional funding actually pays the wages of the people. It pays the rent for the office and all this year-long costs that we have. I'm actually more worried about next year, because we're all headed for a financial crisis somehow. So I'm not sure all the funding will still be in place next year. So I think that's also something we have to consider and keep in mind. As with media or Creative Europe, we're also lucky because we're in a different call. So we already got the funding last year. So we can use the force majeure rule that because of this we can postpone the festival and prolong the project period, and also already pay with that money the costs that we already had. So in that case, for us, it's very, very good. But I think, like Sven said, many other festivals are not in a lucky position like us.
Right. Thank you, Anne. There's lots of questions, so I'll try, ask as many of them as I can. Now is a question from Wouter from Sam Schwarz, Square Eyes, that's the new name. What have been the reactions of the filmmakers? Maybe I think it's about I think all kinds of reactions. If we can maybe then start with Sven.
So actually we just have been sending out our notifications this week, what we're going to do, and there was like nobody who's had a problem with our plans. They said it's totally fine with them, and also since we are not really touching anybody's premiere status with that whole thing, I think everybody is fine with that too. So there's no problem with the whole thing, and everybody's happy that their films are screened anyways where they should be at the big screen cinema as well. So don't want to diss anything that's going online, but it's something. I think we haven't had any negative feedback yet, but then again, notifications have just been out for the last few days.
Mm-hmm. And Anne?
For us, also, I mean, the good thing is that we're all in this together, so the whole world is affected, so nobody can actually say or complain about it. We had positive reactions because we postponed for now, and filmmakers are generally happy that we try to show the films in September. What is actually also funny is that we got a few emails from filmmakers who ask if they can still submit now for the festival edition in September. But we're done with the program. Well, you can submit for next year from the 1st of September, but for this year it's done. But that's very something that was also very nice to experience. No, reactions are positive. I mean, what can they say? I think it would be different maybe if we had to cancel.
Thank you. I have a question from Steve Henderson, and it's a complex question. I'll just make it a bit shorter. But the basis that the question is, what is the last moment when you're gonna decide about the cancellation or postponing the festival if the coronavirus will not change? So because as Stephen wrote, festivals are important, but are there wilder safety priorities we should considerating above the urge to get the audience together? So so maybe let's start because of course. So the question actually is because we have our concerns based on our policies, our contacts with partners, but of course the safety of the audience is our priority as well. So how long will you wait, or what kind of things will make you decide about the cancellation or cancellation of the autumn edition of the festival? Or maybe even in case of Marie-Elaine March edition, if the things will not change. Maybe can we start with the autumn? Anne?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a very important question. And of course, like we said before, we don't know what's going to be in September. I think we all kind of turn into some sort of corona experts. I mean, when this whole thing started, I started checking the numbers every day just to see what's happening in other countries, how close is the virus coming to Germany, what's going on in Germany, what is taken. But I think we also have to trust a little bit the measures taken by the government, and they do. I mean, right now we can't hold a festival, so if the numbers don't change, then we won't be able to hold the festival in September. That's just how it is. But I also believe that you can have precautionary measures. And I'm not just talking about festivals, but in general about things, how we go about in our lives. I mean, we can't lock away the world forever. And maybe we'd still have, I mean, we can learn a lot from this. And I think you can also, it's also in our duty to think of how we can prevent any danger to people's lives. So, I mean, we don't want to do that, of course, but culture is also an important thing. And again, I'm not just talking about festivals. I mean, I can see it in Dresden. I mean, cinemas are closed, and this is people's livelihood. And I think it's also something we should consider. And if there are measures that you can take to keep those things open and yet have people be safe, I think that's something we can do. But again, we don't know. I can't look into the future. We will see.
Yes, Sven?
Actually, just would follow up with Anna. We never know what happens, so we deal with it how it is this year, and then we see how things will go from there. And of course, we have our responsibility towards our audiences. Perhaps then a situation which I don't hope that will ever happen is that in the next year still everything will be not out there, but then we have to move things online and then rethink things as well. But I just say you can't really say right now. Don't know.
Okay, Marie-Elaine, let me maybe not go to you, because I think let's not maybe now start to think about March. Let's really hope and keep our fingers crossed that at that time, at another regard edition of the festival will be over. We're gonna be in a bit different universe. All right, another question from Lotte Kircher from Winterthur. Did you coordinate dates with other festivals? Is there any doodle for rescheduling? I think it's a very good concept. So, because I think autumn gonna be extremely busy. So for now, did you check any other dates already postponed, the festivals which postponed their editions?
We don't have a doodle. Good idea, we keep it for next time. No, I just knew that, for example, Shortwaves or Glasgow would be at the end of August. Again, for us, it's because we're an audience. I mean, we do have good industry audience, but we also have a really, really good local audience. So it's also important to keep it in the local calendar. So one of the most important things were actually the summer holidays, because we always have problems with the Easter holidays. So we, and the summer holidays in Saxony, they finish at the end of August. So this was like, we knew it would have to be after that, the beginning of September. We now clash with Venice actually, but I think that doesn't matter for us as a festival, because and yeah, it's just the way it is. I mean, if we know that September is very busy with festivals, and let's just say from August everything will be fine, then of course there will be many clashes with other festivals. But it's just how it is this year. It's not going to be like this forever. It's this year. We do it for our local audience. We do it for the cinemas. We want to show the films. So what? Then we are at the same time as maybe 5 other festivals and have fewer industry guests, then so be it.
It's sort of the same thing here. Obviously, we didn't really coordinate it since when a lot of Winterthur, and yes, we are on the Winterthur dates, but also as Anna said, we don't expect that much of an industry audience coming to those 3 days. So it's more for like the local audience as well. And we didn't even think about putting our industry day up on November as well, because I know that there are a lot of people have a winter tour within their fixed schedule for the year that they would go there, for example. So it doesn't make any sense to do any competition there, but just work together with other festivals. And in the case of winter tour, I basically told John Cantiani the day before we sent the press release out that we will be on their dates, so he won't kill me next time I see him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that will be a problem of many festivals in autumn. Yes. A question from Samir Karahoda. What was the reaction of the commercial sponsors? So did they withdraw their financial support? And yeah, if anyone who had this experience, if you can share.
Just a very brief thing. The one thing which actually used to be quite bad now turns out to be good, that the sponsoring from commercial sponsors has been like a very small part of our budget in the last years, because those days were sort of over when you get like 10% or 20% of your budget would be from 1 or 2 sponsors, which actually turns out now to be a good thing because we don't really need to rely on that as well. But those sponsors that work with us for years and years now, they were completely fine with the situation because they are in trouble as well, and we help them, they help us, so things are very fun with that. But actually, I personally just would ask Marie-Elaine how that would be for a festival that basically got cancelled in between, how the sponsor would react to that.
All right, thank you. I think Anna already mentioned a couple of, you already mentioned about the reaction of the sponsors. So Marie-Elaine, I don't know what was the reaction of yeah, I think the contracts which were like signed before the festival, they still, I think, going on. How did it look like?
For us,
yes.
For the sponsors? Well, it depends. It's really a case by case, depending of what kind of sponsor. Also, like a sponsor that at the openings, well, there was a sponsor for the ceremony of the, for example, it's not the same as the one after, you know. So each sponsor was really a particular, but they almost have, everybody was supporting us because they knew we spent the money actually, so there was not a lot of money to save. So I'm pretty on the side of Anna about, I'm more worried about next year because if we can do a festival in 2021, obviously like all the touristic, like the hotels, transport, everything will be more expensive, and I think like services sponsors is going to be harder. But because we gave a lot of visibility to the sponsor for this edition, because we were arrived to the festival, maybe some of the sponsor will have a little bit more visibility in the next edition, but in exchange, they gave us the same amount that it was supposed, like in the sponsorship. So we saved more or less everything, but at the same time, we didn't want to be like convincing them too much because they have lost also money. Like for example, a sponsor that are like post-production for films that are stopped and they were giving awards. So those, it's a little bit harder because they also are in a bad situation. So at the same time as we are in the bad situation, we wanted to be under like comprehensive with the one that are also in this. So yeah, it was not like a standard thing, but more case to case.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There's a couple of people ask about your industry part. So do you consider to move on with industry activities online if your festival will not take place? Anna, if you can start.
Maybe. It's all a maybe right now. It's all a maybe. I mean, like I said before, I think personally I like to watch and learn from others. So I will just really use the opportunities now to learn from the online festival, see how they do it, and maybe take something from it that we could do with our festival. But also, as I think Sven mentioned before, I'm also worried about the audience for it. If you all move online, if the weather's nice, will it make sense to put it online? I mean, for the industry, it might be different because it's very specific. So if you have a specific subject, it might be interesting. Maybe it's also better to have things online and keep it for the future. Yeah, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sven?
Yeah, there's actually with the industry part, since we basically canceled our industry days as well, and we won't have them in November. What we did is that we are planning to have 1 or 2 panel discussions for topics that were urgent for this year. They'll be presented in cooperation with the Feature Film Festival here in Hamburg, which will be then 4 weeks before our festival. So we are planning on moving those discussions to that festival. And also that festival as well offered to give some room for those festivals that had been canceled in Hamburg. So we are right now like thinking about how can we be presented there as well. So having a panel discussion from our industry day move there is a good start, and perhaps there might be other things, but the whole industry sessions, those things won't be there this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. A question also about the filmmakers. how you thought about ways to give filmmakers the attention they deserve in your festival, if your festival doesn't happen or happens digitally. So do you have any concept how to appreciate the works of the filmmakers if your festival will not take place or will be taking place online? Anne?
Again, it's something we are still figuring out. For us now, I know it's a bit weird because our festival, we postponed it like 4 weeks ago, I think, but we're still in this phase. I mean, we don't see each other. We only talk online. We you know, I think to really also work on ideas, it's good to be in a group and discuss things back and forth. Right now, we're actually still not recovering, but you know, still working on the edition next week, or dealing with that. And I think in the next weeks or months, we have to figure out a proper plan B and talk about what we do if the festival cannot happen in September. But it's still early days, and we still have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. And Sven?
Yeah, also for us, I think there are two levels to the whole thing. Of course, a film needs to be appreciated by an audience and by the industry at the same time. And also needs to be seen on some sort of screen anyways. But one thing that we have as one of our priorities is that those, let's call them logistical infrastructural things as part of the appreciation of films as it comes to having like nominations for the European Film Awards and having films being able to get their funding points for any funding bodies, all that. So this is something that we have a very close eye on, that this will be possible for filmmakers, that they can actually use those things, that we have some sort of documentation that the film was selected at the festival. But of course, we won't be able to bring it to such a huge audience that we would normally love to bring it to.
Okay, thank you. I already have to mention that, first of all, we need to slowly wrap it up. Second of all, that there's much more questions than we can answer today. I'm pretty sure that we have a lot of material to organize another session to answer all of that questions. Let me maybe finish with the last one from Anna Głowińska. Do you feel a need to change the programming directions of your event, as after this pandemic of the global conscious will surely change? So if we think that our audience will change after the pandemic, do you consider to also make some changes in the direction of your programs? And this is the question, I think, to all of you. Marie-Elaine?
Well, from our side, we've already been thinking about like what will be the films that we will receive for next March, because probably it's gonna be weird because a lot of people cannot shoot the films they were planned to shoot. A lot of films that we were supposed to screen, maybe we will screen it on next year. Like the thematic will be different. So yeah, I think in some way, I don't know how exactly, and I don't know also how we will do to not only screen films about COVID or isolation, or like about films festival cancel and everything. So I think we will have to be creative, at least for the next edition coming. For our next edition, I'm pretty convinced that the second day after we have to cancel, that it will be really a weird edition and as different as the one of this year. And probably after it will change some stuff also for the next one. But then I think we cannot project as such as long, like fall is already so far. So, but I think definitely it will change the programming.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sven.
I think, of course, we might look at quite a few special programs going on dealing with pandemics and all that having next year. But for me, I think it's not a worry, but it's something that certainly will happen next year. There will be less films produced because all those films that would normally be produced right now, they just won't be there, and perhaps some will be cancelled for the lack of funding and all that. So I think there will be a dent in the amount of films that will be produced in total, which sometimes don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But of course, the variety of films that we select from for the next editions, that'll be way smaller than normally.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anna?
Maybe first in response to Sven, I think restrictions always also cause a lot of good creativity. So maybe there will also be more interesting films, and not more in terms of number, but more in terms of variety as well. I don't know. I mean, we have to watch again. We have to see how the audience will react. I think last year already, or in the last couple of years already, the subject of climate change has been quite a topic of discussion also amongst festivals. So there were already discussions about how you can adjust your festivals to that. So this has maybe been a bit sped up right now, this process. I don't think that every festival should make a program on the situation, because I think people will maybe also be a bit fed up of the subject. So it would probably also be nice just to continue with the broad themes or topics that we have in this world and be as diverse as we are. But we will see. I mean, if the audience, because if I remember correctly, it was also in terms of the audience, if the audience will change the program, that we have to see what the audience will say, how they will.
Yeah, thank you. I really wish to have a bit more time, but I think we have to slowly finish the session. As I mentioned, we're gonna collect all the questions and we are planning the next sessions. For now, I would like to thank you so much to all the panelists and participants for their questions. And for all of those who still have some doubts and thinking about going online, let me invite you for the another session in a week at 22nd of April at 3 p.m. We organize a session called Going Viral, and then we were gonna focus on the transferring your festival to an online event. And again, let me remind you also that this session was recorded and will be published on the Talking Shorts website. Another thing is that I didn't introduce one more participant of this session. Niels Putman is a person to contact if you are interested in joining Short Film Conference. So you can all reach him or check all the details on our website. And at the end, yeah, I hope that we all stay safe. I wish you good luck and hope to see you all next week. Thank you.